Hey Nick, well thanks for letting me come in, and I gotta tell you, I didn't know what to expect. We were originally just going to come in and do some strategic planning on some thoughts I had and ideas, and I gotta say I'm a bit overwhelmed already. I mean, you get quite this setup here.
Might as well get used to being on camera.
Yeah. Well, you know me, I don't do any social already. Don't follow anybody on social. Don't do anything. So, as we were talking about, I haven't been involved in politics, haven't been involved in social media or anything like that. But I've kicked that idea around a little bit, just getting more involved. The amount of stuff that's out there right now, just with politics and everything else, you can't get a straight answer out of anybody.
Well, I mean, the hard part about that is combating the misinformation, right? So that's what tends to circulate faster than the truth.
Well, it's like we talked about earlier too. Right. It's Dan Bongino. It's all snapshots and sound bites. So it's all 30-second segments of what they want you to hear by everybody. And I mean, you can't turn on any cable news. And I mean, even they're not even having a conversation. I mean, it's like it doesn't matter who it is or what topic they're talking about. It's almost like they're screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
Everybody's always elevated. Everybody's always high, and they're trying to get that
attention.
Trying to get that attention, trying to get that point across. And so, you've been involved with this for a while. I mean, you've done the politic thing, and you're involved in the community, business owner. Several businesses, everything else, and. I don't think I'd be able to do this without the position you're in right now, because you've got some insight.
Right.
And you know me, I don't hold back. I'm very opinionated. I'll call it as I see it and everything else. Yeah. And you've got the background to where you can kind of tell me, hey, this is really what's going on here. And this is there's that, but also look at this.
Right.
And then you can also direct me to kind of the path that maybe you need to go talk to this person. Maybe you should go talk to this person. So, after thinking about it for a while, I've gotten to a stage that I've ran multi-million-dollar companies, worked for billion-dollar companies, run 2 successful companies myself, raised 3 kids, and you guys are all out of the house and everything. And I finally got to the point that I don't have a whole lot of distractions now, and so now I'm really focusing on, hey, how are you going to make a change? If you're not happy about something, you get involved in. That's what you say all the time. There's always an opportunity to get involved in the politics and everything else. And I've seen some of the text messages you get, to where somebody's complaining about, hey, you guys don't do this, or you're having the meetings while everybody's working and everything else, and you'll send a text about, hey, here's 3 different committees you can be on that are after hours.
Yep.
So for me, it's like you're looking at it, and people are complaining because they don't feel like they can get involved. They don't have a voice in it. You're giving them the options, and I don't know if it's a informational thing to where they just don't understand, all these options are out there, or it's something else. But then when you go, we just had elections. So you go through the elections and you look at the turnout. You've got 212,000 people in the county, somewhere around that ballpark.
212. We got 148,000 registered voters. We had 23% actually show up to the polls.
Right, which I mean, for primary, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I know Pasco was a lot less than that, but still, I mean, when you only got a quarter of your people showing up to decide how the county is being run, basically, I mean, that's just crazy to me.
What I think you've got is a bigger problem outside of that, though, right? So, sure, a quarter of the people showed up. Half of those people are actually educated on what the issues are and who's for what. We don't have a voting. We have an education problem. We don't have a voting problem, right? So I think the community either is apathetic and doesn't care to go ahead and know, because I don't feel like they probably don't feel like their vote counts. They probably don't feel like they have a voice. And the people that do feel like they have a voice and that their vote counts, I don't feel like have the information available to them that's correct to go ahead and actually make an informed decision properly. So I think first and foremost, you have an education issue in politics for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's true, and that's kind of why I thought we wanted to do this. Why I wanted to get involved in this, because, like you said, you're not going to learn a lot from that 30 seconds that somebody's just screaming something out to the point that they want to get across. And, like you said, if you've got maybe 25% of the people that are voting, and the 25% of those are maybe educated about whether are they really educated about it, or are they've been listening intently to what they think they're being educated on, and whether
Echo
it's true or
chambers
not.
are extremely dangerous.
Well, you got
right?
silos,
So,
yeah.
yep.
I mean, you get in your little silo, and they're all in on this one thing, and you're
Repeating
hearing the same thing over and
Yep.
over again. Then, hey, perception becomes reality. If that's all you're hearing, then that must be the truth. So
they got that. They got that voters page on Facebook that's just a cesspool of the same wrong information over and over and over again.
Right. So for me, looking at it, I'm like, there's got to be something more. And I listen to a couple podcasts, and they're in-depth podcasts, and you're not going to get anything out of a 30-second spot or a 15-minute interview or something like that. Where you really seem to get a lot of the content where you can make an informed decision is it's an hour conversation or a 2-hour conversation, and it's not just about one topic. It's an overall thing, because it's like anybody else, man. When you interview somebody or you talk to somebody, you converse with somebody, yeah, they may have a good point on one thing, but unless you open it up and really find out what they're about, you're not going to understand where they're coming from. But I've listened to interviews that other podcast guys did with like Bernie Sanders, and he's so far off the end, it's incredible. But when you listen to a 2-hour podcast with Bernie, he's got some points, or at least he's got some basis for his thought process, and then you start to understand where that side is.
It's not 100% crazy. It's
not saying it's right or it's wrong, but at least you understand his thought process, where he's getting from, where you don't get that in a short, condensed. Hey, this is the agenda we're trying to push.
Yep.
So with me looking at that, I'm just thinking, hey, I was born in Florida. Lived in Hernando County off and on all my life. We've always had a house in Hernando County. 53 right now, and I've gotten to my point in my life where, yeah, I think I can sit back and make it.
You're days away from 54.
Just to remind you. I know, and hey, you know what? It doesn't even bother me, man. It doesn't even bother me. It's one of those deals that I think there's something to age. You get to the point where, when I was younger, there's no chance in hell I could do something like this, because I didn't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got the patience for it today.
We'll see.
I'm very opinionated, and but I think I've gotten to the point where I can listen to the other side and not automatically form an opinion, and just more do it on an informative basis to try to learn.
I think in general the public has forgotten how to talk to each other.
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, everybody's buried in their phone, man. Right. It's text messages, and again, it's that snapshots and sound bites. It's that quick text message and everything else. Nobody sits down. I mean, and that's a whole issue. You look at at the dinner table. Families don't have dinner together for the most part. It's like we're all running, doing stuff, and so yeah, that conversation just isn't there.
Right.
And even with the schools and stuff, where you got all the remote learning now and everything else. That used to be where children would learn how to converse with people and make friends and everything else, and there's a lot of that's just gone away. So
what I don't think a lot of people realize, especially when you start bringing this into the local aspect, is that our elected officials and the people actually running our county right now are incredibly easy to actually get a hold of and have a conversation. They want to go ahead and talk to you about stuff.
Right.
Like, they want to be able to go ahead and try to educate and explain what's going on. It's not some secret cabal running the entire county that everyone thinks that it is, right? So I think if people understood how easy it was to actually go ahead and pick up a phone and get in touch with the county commissioner, or go ahead and talk to their county administrator, things would probably be a little bit different.
Well, I got to tell you, we're getting ready to find out.
Yeah.
I did have a good conversation with Brian Hawkins the other night, which was good. And he's like, look, people don't ask me these questions. They don't get that far in depth on the budgets and stuff like that.
The things that the county commissioners get called about are, my trash got missed. When are we going to have trash pickup coming back? And, I need a stoplight here because there's a pothole and I can't see. Or,
Right.
It's the same repetitive stuff over and over that they normally get. But for people to have an interest in the budget and have an interest in how we're actually spending money and how we're raising money. Two totally different things. And that's where it starts getting a little complicated to understand that you're not going to be able to unpack in 10 minutes. It's going to be an hour-long conversation of this is actually how government finance works. Because government finance is completely different than business finance, completely different than personal finance. There's stuff that comes in that can only be spent in certain ways.
Right,
and,
absolutely.
Different funds for different things. Yeah. So, no, I think it's good that we're trying to go ahead and get that out there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think that you're gonna unwrap it in an hour-long conversation or 2-hour-long conversation because, my thought process is, I want to talk to all the elected officials. I want to talk to the county commissioners. I want to interview all of those. I want to interview the people that didn't win to see what that process is like for them. And then I want to go through the government. I want to meet with the administrator, and so he can, because like we were talking about the other night. So you get a newly elected commissioner, that hasn't been in office before, because anybody can run. Right. There's no prerequisite. So you get a new elected county commissioner. Like you said, there's so much intricacies on and nuances to how a local government works and funding works, and the money comes in and there's different tax authorities and stuff like that. That how does that guy get brought up to speed, and how long does that take? For him to be effective. It's one of those deals. You and I've talked about it, quite a bit. That I'm all in favor of term limits. I don't think the way people get elected and they just stay in there for their whole life. I don't think it was ever meant to be that way. I think it was meant to you go and you make a difference, do what you can do, and then bring fresh people in and they've got their own ideas and stuff. And I think that's kind of gotten lost. But getting back to trying to get up to speed, that's got to take some time. So well, your first year, you're just trying to figure the system out, I would think, right?
So here's where I have a little bit of a different opinion on that, right? I don't think Joe Homeowner should be running for office. I don't think that people that just decide one day, hey, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens, should even be qualified to run for office. Looking at me personally, right? I spend probably 20 hours a week just going over local government stuff.
Right.
I'm not running for office. I'm involved in government. But there should be people like that you go ahead and say, hey, that guy would be a good candidate. Why don't we convince him to go ahead and run? Right? So the people that are actually involved in stuff and actually understand the process and don't have to burn a year getting up to speed when they first come in, when they can go ahead and come into office and be effective at that point, that's a good candidate.
Right. No, I agree.
But that's not how our election system works. Our election system is essentially a popularity contest. Who can go ahead and get in front of you the most? Who can go ahead and run the most effective ads and flyers? It's a marketing campaign.
Well, and I think that's why a lot of people think it is that little secret cabal, that it's a select few people that are involved in it, and maybe that's because that select few people are the people who are involved in government.
Well, they're the ones that are dedicating their time to actually understand.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and what you're going to see is when those people that are outside of that ring finally do get elected, they're going to go ahead and realize that all the stuff that they talked about during their entire campaign, their hands are tied on 80% of it.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, that's not to get too deep into the political side here or one thing or the other, because I know a lot of what you want to do is political, but you have
it's not
goals outside of that,
it
right?
is, but it's not. So for me, it's all about Hernando County, and I've done a lot of traveled, all the world, traveled all over the United States, all over the state of Florida, and you see different communities, different governments, things like that, how they handle things, and for me, it's the political side, because that's kind of what's controlling a lot of the funding. It's controlling on where the funding goes, controls on what's implemented, what's not implemented. So for me to understand Hernando County and to understand, first you got to understand how it works before you can fix it, right? So for me, it's a matter of, we got to get in the political side of it, because not necessarily this guy's better than this guy, but thought processes and what they're trying to get done. And so for me, you've got the elected officials that are trying to get the stuff done, and then you've got the government side of it that is the facilitator that set the rules and the boundaries and what you can and can't do, and the way things have to be done for these guys. And like you said, you get a newly elected guy that made all his promises that didn't understand the system, then he gets in there and like, hey, you can't do that. You can't move, this general fund to fire to do fire or whatever, So for me, yeah, it's more of a broad scope that I'm trying to do. And I want to cover the political side of the elected officials so I understand, their thought processes, and then I want to dive into the government and see how the government's structured. And I want to document all this because, like you said, there's 75% of the population out there that's not even educated on this. They don't know how any of this stuff works.
And I would say out of that 75%, 75% is honestly probably a low figure for who's uneducated on it, right? I mean, there's probably 80%, 85% that are actually uneducated about it and don't really understand. But of that 80%, there's probably at least 60% of that don't care one way or another.
Well, and honestly, not that they should not care, but if you're a citizen or doing something, you shouldn't have to be the one involved in the day-to-day grind of it. I mean, that's like, as a citizen, you're kind of like a business owner. You kind of step back and you got people that you elect, people you hire, and everything else that should be doing what they need to be doing.
And what that comes down to is a bigger conversation about what's the actual role of government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, sure, we can go ahead and do all this stuff, but should the government actually be involved in some of the stuff that they're involved in?
Well, you and I have talked about that a lot, where it just irritates the shit out of me how, you've got state government involved in local government, and how, why can't a county be self-sufficient? Why can't a county run, its own budget and handle its own stuff and not be so dependent on the state?
I think it could, just taxes are going to be extremely high.
Yeah, I mean, and there's always a trade-off there,
right? Look at like a small county like a Clay County or any of those.
I get that.
Where they might have a low population, but they still have fire trucks they got to go ahead and maintain. They still got all that kind of stuff.
I get that. I mean, you've got counties that are small and they don't have enough populace to pay for the basic needs that they need to have.
Mm-hmm. That's more than a third of the counties in Florida.
Yeah, no, and I get that, but at some point, what scares me is you've got county decisions being made based on funding that the state is doing instead of what's best for the county.
Right.
And that's what I would love to get away from is, hey, we're big enough as a county now. And we're not by far. We're in the middle of the pack somewhere, I would think, as far as size for counties and things like that.
Well, that's why people love DeSantis during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because he went ahead and he went against some of the funding stuff. And they said, okay,
absolutely.
Well, you got to have everybody vaccinated. You got to have these mask mandates, and you got to have all these mandates on your people to go ahead and control them. And he basically said, yeah, kick dirt.
Right, exactly.
We don't need the money. Let's give it back.
Well, and again, that gets back to
the education thing, too.
Well, that gets back to, hey, Florida's, self-sufficient pretty much. I mean, we've got a great economy in Florida, and it's self-sufficient, and we're not as dependent on the government as maybe a smaller state that doesn't have our money, that, hey, we've got to do whatever the federal government says because we need their funding to support the state. Where Florida, we don't necessarily have to do that as much. So, yeah, it was nice to see DeSantis say, hey, keep your money. We're doing this.
Right.
And I just wish that we could do that on a localized level with the county as well.
Yep.
So, again, it gets back to I want to document the whole process. I mean, and that's kind of why we're doing this today, is because I want to document it from the start to finish. I by far have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I mean, this is all new to me, but I will be as transparent and honest and speak my mind and everything else, but not be confrontational, because all I'm doing is trying to learn. And I think we can document that and show that, it's going to go a long way. And I don't think any bad can happen to that. I mean, you may educate one more person that may decide to get into it, but if we can do the political side of it, we can do the local government side of it, and then once we do that, we can get into the business owner side of it, and then the citizen side of it, and cover the entire thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of great things in Hernando County, but, I've lived here. We built a house in 2001, our latest house in 2001 in Hernando County. And but I've lived here all my life, and watched the county grow. And yeah, I agree with some stuff, don't agree with some stuff. And I was a normal citizen that, hey, the government's handling it. It really doesn't affect me too much. But you see some of the stuff that's going on now. It's just, it's always the growth, right? The growth is, driving and detracting from the way of life. But the more I traveled, the more I saw other governments and the way things were run in other countries and things like that. You think that, it can be better, and
It's
not.
definitely not a perfect system.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you've got, like you said, I mean, we're narrowing it down to, you got 25% of the citizens that understand it, and you've got, whatever, 10 people, 12 people, 15 people that are maybe qualified to be a candidate for, an office, because they understand the government a little bit more intently. Um, at that point, they're in that silo. You've got that collective group that, hey, this is where we're doing. This is what we did last year. This is how we handle this situation. And for me, it's never good to have that.
It's not, but you got to find a way to engage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Normal people.
Absolutely, and I'm sure, like in business, we had groups, man. When I was in, building product distribution, we had a wholesaling group that, the large wholesalers on the Midwest to Eastern would all meet in a location and just go over best practices and, what the struggles were and things like that. And just try to understand, so we weren't, because when you're running a company, you're the one making all the decisions, as you know.
Right.
So it's all in your head, and unless you're getting outside, support or looking at other industries or doing that, it's really easy to drive the company in one direction and not see the whole picture.
100%.
And I don't know. Again, we're going to find out, but I don't know if there's a county commissioners group to where, they have a meeting once a year with different county commissioners where they get together and say, hey, this is what we're doing in our county. This is best practice. We tried that. That was a horrible idea.
They do.
Whatever that is. But
they got a association of cities and association of counties where the county administrator and actually management of the counties go ahead and meet and do exactly that.
Right.
And then the county commissioner aspect of it, they've got obviously boards of multi-county stuff that they go ahead and sit on for like size.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at some of the county commissioner on the county webpage, and they always do the little bio and the groups that they're involved in and everything else. But and again, I'll have to dig into this because I'm not well versed on the structure of the county, but just reading the budget and things like that, the county administrator puts it together and everything, but he's not the one that makes a lot of decisions. He can give his thought process and what he recommends, but the commissioners are the ones that will vote on it and decide which direction it goes. So, even though he's going to the meetings with the county administrators, like you said, bringing back best practices and telling the county commissioners, hey, this is best practices, they still have the ability to say, hey, we're not going to do that.
They do.
Yeah, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, I don't know.
So there are commissioners that we have that honestly, I believe, do look out for the best interests of the county, whether or not that's going to get them reelected. I think they're
what they believe or perceive is the best interest of the county.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what they've basically separated out as not a necessarily popular decision, but the decision they feel like has to be made. Right? You have other commissioners that are on that board that are going to go ahead and popular opinion wins. Whoever's yelling the loudest is the decision they're making. And that is strictly to go ahead and say, hey, look what I just did. You guys are all yelling about it. Go ahead. The problem with that is that most of the time, the loudest voices are coming from a minority. It's a loud minority.
Well, that's the way it always is. I mean,
always.
Yeah.
But for commissioners to get swayed by that kind of stuff, it's not what the general population wants. And I mean, there's different arguments to go ahead and be had on both sides of that, I would assume. But I do feel like there are certain people that use the position that they're in for self-promotion and preservation of their position as a commissioner.
So let me ask you, if they're doing that, and this is just, I guess, hypothetical, because you obviously don't know, but what's the driver behind that? I mean, what's the driver for somebody wanting to be in that spot if they're not there to do the best thing they can for the county? I mean, is it just a popularity contest? They want the spotlight and ego and.
Yep, I think a lot of it's ego.
So you would think that, yeah, you might elect somebody like that, but again, we get back to the sound bites and snapshots that nobody's ever held to account. I mean, you watch the elections going on right now, for presidential elections and all the elections going on, it seems like everybody's lying.
But think about that, right? So you know that because you see the county commission meetings, right?
Yeah. I'm just saying, even on a national level.
I know, but going out further than that, there's not a whole lot of local coverage of local
There's
events.
not at all. And that's one of the reasons I want to get into this.
We don't have unbiased media in Hernando County.
No.
You know, every paper that we have has some type of direct bias, usually who's paying them the most for the ads.
Right.
You know, we don't have a whole lot of TV coverage, which is, I think cable television is dying anyway. So a lot of this is all switching over to streaming and those methods for actually digesting content. But for most people, unfortunately, their news source is social media.
Right.
So it's whatever people are putting out, which isn't always
correct. And that
correct.
100 and whatever characters or 200 characters, right? I mean, whatever the max is for social.
It's what I'm trying to get at there is that people might go ahead and make those decisions, but they're going to cut it and go ahead and just do what's beneficial to them anyway and put that online, as that's what their promotion is. For the people that are actually paying attention throughout the year during the boring parts, you can truly see how people actually operate and what their best interest is.
Right.
And I feel like if more people got educated on that side, we'd see a bigger shift in what actually is happening in government.
I guess first you got to have a transparent media source. It's going to just put it out there, whatever it is, and try to inform people.
HernandoCounty.us/watch now. You watch it live.
What is that?
That's the government's webpage for all of the broadcast meetings. So you can go back and you can watch every single county commission meeting, every MPO meeting, every planning and zoning meeting, every airport authority meeting.
I got to tell you, I've watched quite a few of those, and some of them just drive me absolutely crazy. It drones on and on and on, and it's just ridiculous. And
Well, and so here's a bigger problem, right? You might call it a problem, you might not. We've got sunshine law. Right, so our commissioners are not allowed to meet outside of a public hearing to talk about anything.
They're not allowed to meet together or individually?
They're not even allowed to meet at all to discuss.
You're saying meet each other?
Meet each other.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean they can meet individually with any individual, but that individual can't pass information on what they've been talking about.
So that's to stop collusion then?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's supposed to keep everything in the public, in the sunshine, right? So what you end up seeing where they drone on and on these meetings is because they don't have the ability to discuss ahead of time at all.
Right, right.
So everything that has to be brought to the carpet and actually decided on at that point in time happened right there.
Right.
You got to see how it all unfolded, and that's not necessarily a good thing in my opinion. I think there's a lot of background information that you should be taking away from stuff and ideas that you shouldn't be trying to decide in the matter of a 4-hour meeting.
Well, let me ask you then. I mean, has there ever been any kind of discussion? And I'm trying to learn all this on the fly here, but has there been any discussion? Because I know they do some meetings where they do a planning meeting and they'll have a meeting after that.
You can do workshops.
And workshop.
Yep.
I mean, is that something where they do like a pre-workshop to? And televise it, you know.
No, they all are. Yeah, so we currently have workshops that are recorded. They're open to the public. The public can come.
Right. So you would think that the commissioners could meet in a workshop, and then it wasn't like that for the official meeting.
The workshops are highly ineffective, in my opinion.
Why would that be? I mean,
because they don't ever actually discuss the issues at hand. It's always I think they're just poorly structured. Again, my opinion, but the information that's brought up at workshops do shorten the process of the actual official meetings, but a lot of that kind of stuff is just argument and passed back to staff as staff will go ahead and get more information for it on us and that type of stuff. I don't think a lot of decisions are ever actually hashed out and figured out there. It's just
I think that's part of the issue there too, to where it drives the citizens crazy, to where, granted, you want to make sure you make the right decision. There's a lot of information at stake, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, but it seems like it's inefficient. And you talk to any business leader, you've got to be efficient when you're running your business. And you can pretty much talk to anybody, and they're like, you want to find the most inefficient thing, go to a government. I mean, it takes forever to get anything done, anything processed, anything decided. And I saw something that I think it was through the Hernando, is it Sun? and they were saying that, and I think it was an interview with Alaco, and he was having a meeting in Hernando Beach, and he's like, look, I didn't realize how long it took to get things done and processed through the government system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I think they were maybe asking him why, you campaign on all these things and you haven't got it done yet. And he's like, that was one of the things I didn't realize. So, I mean, when you talk to anybody, they're like, you want to find the most inefficient system, go to any government office, and it's just, they would never be able to survive.
Yeah, but why is that?
Right. I think, again, for me anyway, it's because you don't have somebody making the decision. You don't empower the people to make the decisions, and everybody's got to check with everybody. And
the reason that I think is put in place is too many safeguards for the public, because everything's got to be advertised for 10 days, given due public notice before any decisions can be moved forward at all. And I think there's a good intention to go ahead and try to protect the people, but that slows government down.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I get that aspect of it, to where you need to do that and you need to inform the citizens on what's coming up and what they're doing and everything else. Mm-hmm. But what really gets irritating as a citizen is you go through that whole process, you post all that stuff, you have the workshops, you go to the meetings, and we still can't get a decision made. I've seen it before. I mean, I've watched the county commissioner meetings to where they'll hear arguments on one side of it, make a decision, and then somebody will say, well, what about this? And then they'll hear more arguments and make another decision the opposite way. I'm like, how? I mean, this is just whoever makes the best decision or at the right time, or it just seems like so inefficient to where I get you've got a structure, and I get you need to notify everybody, and I think that's a good thing that the public needs to know whether they're going to participate or not. You can't take the right away from them in the process.
So here's the crazy thing about all that. Okay, Sunshine Law applies to all local governments, right? All local governments, pretty much every branch below that. Like the Planning and Zoning Commission I'm on follows Sunshine Law. I can't talk to other Planning and Zoning Commissioners outside of our meetings about things that are coming up. The people that aren't constrained by Sunshine Law are all of your legislators in Tallahassee.
Right. So
where they're actually trying to make decisions and stuff like that, they're having closed door meetings every day.
Which is absolutely crazy, because you and I had talked about, I was watching something or listening to something, and not so much on the state level, but on the federal level, to where I think there was like 1,200 or 1,500 lobbyists for the pharma, big pharma, and there's only 535 representatives up there. So it's like a 3-to-1 thing just on that lobbyist group. And if those people, and I don't know if that's what you're saying for the state is true for the federal, if they're allowed to have all those meetings and stuff and meet with pharma and everything else behind, that doesn't seem right to me either.
No, so our commissioners can still
and we talked to Blaze, and he's like, yeah, I mean, the hospitals are the biggest lobbyists up there right now.
Yeah, that can happen even locally, because a commissioner can meet with any lobbyist group or any type of group of people that they want. Where it becomes an issue for Sunshine Law is if that commissioner meets with another commissioner at that point.
Yeah, but if you got both of those commissioners meeting with a lobbyist, that's even worse.
They can do it individually.
Right, but I mean, you're saying in the state they can do it together, because they can meet together, so they should be able to meet with them as well.
On the House floor, they have breakout rooms specifically so
right.
Multiple representatives can go talk privately before they have a vote.
I can see both sides of it, because like I said, look, I mean, you're getting stuff done. I mean, you're trying to get together, you're trying to get stuff done, you're trying to understand things. I mean, get more informed in some. And the other side of it is like, well, you guys are forming a group and trying to push an agenda through.
Right, but
and it's that transparency, I guess.
So it's the transparency aspect of it. I would almost be for dropping Sunshine Law altogether, because it's going to increase efficiency in government.
It is, but then nobody's going to, I mean, I'm not in favor of that. I would see where that would be fraught with, I mean, if everybody's up and everybody's trying to do the right thing, great. Right. If they're not, it would become a great issue, because everybody's just going to get together and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And then, like you're dealing with now, where everybody thinks it's a cabal. Well, you got a closed door meeting where everybody's just getting together, and then they're going to come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Right. I'm with you on that too, but for me,
I mean, I understand the efficiency side of it. Yeah, you should be able to pick the phone up and
I
say,
think a
"What are
lot
you
of that
thinking
should
on
be
this?"
coming down to you should be electing people with integrity.
Yeah, well, so and this gets back to the beginning. How do you get to that point? I mean, I think that's the goal of every citizen is we want to elect somebody that's going to do what we want them to do, or what at least what they tell us they're going to do. You know, when you get into all these debates and all these elections and stuff, like I said, it seems like everybody's lying to you. You know, they can tell you one thing, the other side can tell you exactly the opposite, and they will say the opposite thing that the other person's saying is what they're true. I mean, you can't make heads or tails of what's true, what's not, and there's absolutely no accountability. And I saw something probably a month ago where I think the UK is trying to pass a law over there that makes it illegal for a government official to lie, which I think is awesome. Come on, you got to be able to think of one that you know is just a blatant lie out there, you know.
I think there's a lot of different ways to spin the same information. I think that it's not always necessarily a lie per se as we're interpreting this information that way. There is an ethics commission that goes ahead and investigates every single complaint made like that. Okay?
Where's that list, man? I'd love to see that list of who's had complaints against him, what's been investigated.
Had 4 this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
He's gone ahead and won every single one of them.
Yeah.
Turned out that, okay, well, no, it's not actually an issue. And yeah, you did do the right thing, but
Yeah.
a lot of it comes down to campaign finance. A lot of it comes down to...
I don't even care about that. I don't care where anybody raises any money.
It's not necessarily raise money. A lot of us spend money. How you spend money and how you actually report what you spent and who you're giving money to.
Why does that? I mean, I understand you want a by-election, you know, and that's kind of where I would think that campaign finance would be, you know, regulated a little bit, so nobody's buying elections and just throwing a bunch of money at it.
Right.
But for me, I would think there'd be another safeguard in place where it wouldn't matter how much money you spend on something, except you get back to there's not another source. So, you know, if you spend a shit ton of money and you just put out all this, you know, okay, maybe it's not a lie, but maybe it's not factually accurate.
Well, like every mailer that you got in the mail this election cycle had some type of, you know, subsection on there that told you where the information came from, right?
Well, yeah, but when it says fucking AI generated and you know, at that point you're just making shit up.
Well, no. So, I mean, the AI generated that you saw in the one particular ad there, right, is... did you read the full disclaimer on that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I thought that was hilarious. That a PAC actually went ahead and went to that extent. But, I mean, that extent on a disclaimer, I thought was hilarious.
I read the disclaimer because I've been in business. I read fine print all the time. I don't think a lot of the citizens are sitting there reading, hey, who's paying for this ad? And is it a real ad or is it generated by AI and all this other... I mean, because, you know, honestly, it's the smallest font on the thing and it's not bold font. It's just, you know, I think it's bare minimum. There's probably a regulation that says you got to put that on there.
8 point,
yeah, and it's whatever the bare minimum is to try to slide this through and
yeah. But the AI involvement in ads, I think, is going to be something that we start seeing a lot.
I agree.
You know, because it shortens actual production time of stuff, reduce costs.
I am fine with that. It's
Right.
when you start doing some of the stuff that you know I don't agree with, and I we don't need to get into it too much. But when you can show somebody doing something or in something that they've never been a part of, that to me is wrong, because that influences people and that's false information.
I can see how your thought process is on that.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily agree with it, but yeah.
Well, no, and hey, it's marketing, and it's, you know, it is what it is, and as long as you know, say, hey, we kind of made this up, but this is what it kind of looks like. I mean, if you look at the true colors, this is what it would be. I mean, I understand the premise of it. I don't know. It's just, you know, some of that stuff that, and like you said, AI is going to be more and more involved in everything we do going forward.
At the end of the day, a voter should see that, right? And not believe it at face value, but at least spark some type of research and interest into, let me actually go ahead and figure some stuff out about this candidate.
Right.
All these voters should be doing their own research about candidates.
You know they're not, man.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
So how do you go ahead and combat that?
Well, and knowing that they're not, it's really easy to say, hey, all we got to do is this, and they're going to buy into it because they're not going to do any research.
The other thing we got to go ahead and inform people about is closed primary versus open primary, universal primary.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people realize that even though they were Democrat or an NPA in this race, that they actually did have a voice on certain things.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But I think that's what causes a lot of lower turnout as well.
But I got to tell you, I was shocked when you've got some of the elections that happened just recently, they had nobody opposing them from a different view, a different party.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand how you can have a two-party system and one party's not even represented. I mean, how do you not have somebody out of a county the size we are that has an opposite viewpoint of... I guess maybe not an opposite viewpoint, because you had two Republicans running against each other in the election, so maybe they got different viewpoints. They obviously had different viewpoints because there was huge campaigns done, against each other. So I don't know. It's again, not to get too far in the weeds on it, but that's kind of the premise I wanted to go with, man. I just want to inform people. I want to learn myself. And I think the only way to do that is a little more in-depth things than these little snapshots and sound bites of the normal stuff. And for me, it's going to be a process. Understand the people that are elected, understand the government and the vehicle they have at their disposal to use to get the results that they're trying to get, and then understand how it's affecting business owners and how it affects the residents of the community. And then overall, look at the community. Once I understand all that, look at the community as a whole and figure out if I agree with the direction the county's going or not, and then what we can do to get people motivated to make a change. Because, like you said, if you're leaving it up to those, 15, 20 people, they have their own ideas and they're going that direction and they're making that decision for 212,000 people. So that's kind of the premise I'm going on and trying to figure that out. And you and I had talked a little bit, and I'm not not doing this to make any money. I can fund whatever I need to fund, but we're starting day one, so we don't have a vehicle for it yet. Don't have Spotify, don't have YouTube, don't have any followers, don't have any supporters, don't have any talent, don't have any of it. So I'm just starting from day one, and just trying to get a strategic plan put together on how to accomplish some of that stuff. So
we're set on, Hernando this week?
Yeah, I think we're going to do Hernando this week, and I'd like to do a weekly update. And every week we'll focus on one thing, and whether it's just an interview with one person, or maybe it's a process that we're focused on, or or a business we're focused on. So I'm not necessarily going after businesses to spotlight businesses and what they do, but I'm trying to figure out how all the decisions that are made by the elected officials in the government is affecting the businesses and the citizens in general. Because if it's a business, it's going to affect the citizens as well.
I'll be the first to say that our procurement process is the most broken system that we have in all of local government.
Well, I think that's the way it is in not only the local government, but the state government and federal government. Yeah. I mean, you always hear stories of, why are we spending, $15,000 on a hammer, type deal.
Yeah. Jim Jordan.
Yeah. So, why do you say that?
I think there's a lot of local talent that you can pull from, but I think that the barrier to entry is too high for a lot of those local companies. So I think that there's certain corporations that have made their living in we're gonna cater to governments, and I think that kind of excludes a lot of the local organizations where they don't have necessarily the experience requirements that the county requires. So the county requires a large amount of insurance. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's got to go ahead and protect itself.
Right.
But so we've started a construction company in the last 2 years. Being a contractor and not having a ton of staff made it extremely hard for us to get insurance for the actual construction company. So I was able to get a level of insurance, but we actually had to go through a payroll leasing to get coverage on just about anything because the insurance companies didn't want to take the risk on basically a startup company that didn't have a whole bunch of staff yet.
So was it a staff issue or was it financial history?
It was a history aspect, and that we didn't actually have. I think the minimum we needed was like 15 staff members or something actually doing the work.
Why is that?
That's a fucking great question. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm not the insurer. So
I mean, that to me is counterintuitive, is saying, look, you got to grow your business and overbloat it with staff and not be efficient to do this.
Yeah, but I think for them it's the exposure on, okay, well, you're running X amount of projects that have a certain dollar figure attached to them. You don't truly have anybody doing the work. You're subbing most of it out, and you're basically just the paper contractor holder at that point. So because we're relying on other companies to go ahead and get things done, I think that's where they're seeing the liability at.
So let me ask you, and not to get too far in the weeds, but just on that, because it gets back to the government requirements and everything else. Do they have different standards for different projects? Like, I mean, I'd understand, like, if I'm building a courthouse, I've got to have certain things. But if I'm building, a playhouse at the park, is it a different set of standards based on dollar value or what it is, or
project type?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hernando County puts all of their stuff on OpenGov, so that's where all their procurement actually is. You can actually go on. You can look at basically the solicitation for bids and everything that they need that's required to that. A lot of times it's a decent level of insurance, but what they normally want is at least 2 to 3 other references of similar sized projects you've done for other governments.
Okay.
How do you ever get started?
Well, no, but you got to understand. I would think that if I'm having a project done, I want to make sure this guy's done something similar to it.
I'm totally okay with that, except when it comes to we need a lawnmower for the medians. I don't care. Go ahead and pick Joe Blow that's got a lawnmower.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering. I mean, do they have that? And I guess that's what I was getting at. Is it?
There is that requirement right now where you have to show at least 3 other municipalities you've done similar sized projects for. As far as I'm not even caring so much about the capital projects. I'm caring about the maintenance projects, because that's where we lose all of our money at. Okay, when we go ahead and get into these maintenance and service contracts that are totally overbloated because they're going to gigantic companies with huge amounts of overhead, and they know they're working for a government, they can charge triple what they would normally charge in a regular environment.
Well, that's well known. I mean, I've been in the construction industry for 35 years, and that's very well known that, hey, if you're going to do a government project, you're going to make bank on it.
I double all of our fees for government projects.
Absolutely. That's well known.
But part of it's for the red tape and the extra paperwork and stuff, because there is admin fees associated with how much paperwork you got to fill out on these damn things. But when it comes down to like a landscape project, I would much rather have 3 different companies get a bid or get a award on different sections of the county.
No, I got you. I'm with you on that.
That are local companies, though. Like, let's give back to the actual, put the tax dollars back into the local businesses.
So that's kind of the stuff that I want to get into is like, because again, you get in and me not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I don't know. Is that a state statute that you got to do that, or is that? I mean, how is that driven and how is that dictated? Because I'm with you. I mean, you would think we've got county attorneys that can write a contract and say, look, we're going to give this guy a shot. He's got the insurance, so we're covered there. If he doesn't perform, we kick him out. There's no long-term deal here. I'm pretty sure you can write a contract any way you need to cover the county for it, as long as you've got the insurance requirements and maybe there's some background stuff you need to do as far as criminal and things like that.
The only concern is insolvency and stuff like that, right? So
so you got a contract with the landscaper and he goes belly up. I mean,
the grass is going to keep on growing either way,
right? I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find another one,
right? Yeah, that's what I would much rather see our structured system set up to.
I mean, you talk about landscapers. I mean, for me, the county itself is horrendous on keeping anything.
Yeah, but so like they've got the memorial going up at Veterans Park, right? It's the new ADA accessible memorial site.
Right.
There was only one contractor that bid on that. He was a local contractor, but it was like $900,000.
For what?
Yeah. So the county actually went ahead and said, no, we're not going to do it right now. It's too expensive. We're going to put it back out the bid again.
Well, hey, good move on that.
Yeah.
I mean, Okay, so they want to have references from the contractors. You've done this in 3 other municipalities. When they go to procurement to build something like that, do they go to the other counties that have done that before and say, what was your cost on this?
So we actually have Scott Herring is our county engineer. Like all the roadway projects and stuff like that, they actually pre-bid and have like a expected cost on something, and then they send it out to bid and see where the actual values are start coming in at and how they compare to what they expected. There is a little bit of a check and balance.
I got to tell you, that is something that, I mean, I think that would drive every citizen crazy, just understanding how the road systems work and how the road construction works. And, you know as well as I do, you can drive anywhere and there's going to be a road torn up for years. And I don't know how, it's like, when I was doing some construction, it's like, yeah, spike the job, set your cones out, spike the job, get the draw, type deal. And then it sits forever before anything's done with it. And yet, when the bridge went out when we had the Ian, and what was it?
It was like 14 days. They had
they built a whole new fucking bridge in 14 days. Yeah. I mean, you can get shit done.
You can. You don't have to have the same safety standards and all the other bullshit.
It's a bridge. I mean, how much safety standards do you have on a flat road?
Half of it was a causeway where they had to bring in a ton of sand.
Yeah, but still, I'm just saying, maybe not 14 days, but maybe you don't have a road torn up for 3 years, or why tear the whole thing up all at the same time?
Stop using the companies that have the bad reputation.
Yeah,
gone bankrupt how many times, and they've gone through so many different municipalities that just won't work with them now. Like, here's an idea. Maybe we just stop using those people.
Right. No, I'm with you. I mean, and that's kind of the point of it. We just want to dive into it and figure out what's what. And so I think we got the premise of what we're trying to accomplish. We just got to figure out the vehicle to get there. Because I don't know anything about the. I'm gonna lean on Josh a little bit maybe, and you guys, and you got all this stuff here, and so I think one of the biggest concerns I had originally, and we talked about it, was I didn't know if you wanted to be tied to me on some of this stuff because, you got your own thing going on, and I speak my mind, and I don't rely on anybody. All my stuff's paid for. I don't need anything from anybody. Right. So,
no, we're good. So perfect. We'll start going ahead and make it a weekly thing then.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to figure out the backbone for it, and again, I don't know how to do all that stuff, so we'll figure out what's what. And
super easy.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited, man.
Yeah. Good deal. Do it.
Thanks.